Buried Betrayals, a Helena Monroe story. Chapter 1. The Call. Rosa Fuentes pushed open the door to her sister Alicia's apartment, expecting the familiar comfort of a lived-in space. A scattering of colourful trinkets, the gentle hum of a radio, the faint aroma of home-cooked meals. Instead, she was met by an unsettling void. The living room lay in eerie silence. A phone abandoned on the coffee table, its screen dark, and Alicia's purse left haphazardly by the front door, its contents untouched. The absence of Alicia, usually so palpable, sent a chill through Rosa's veins, as if the very air in the apartment were holding its breath. Her eyes swept instinctively to the small entryway. Alicia's outdoor shoes sat neatly beside the door, untouched. A frown creased Rosa's brow. Alicia never left without them. If she'd gone somewhere willingly, she wouldn't have walked outside in her indoor slippers. A creeping unease clawed at Rosa's chest. For a long moment, Rosa stood rooted in the doorway, her mind racing. Had Alicia left in a hurry? Was it some sort of careless mistake? But the stillness and disorder told a different story, one of sudden, inexplicable disappearance. Each familiar detail now felt ominously out of place, a silent witness to something deeply amiss. Unable to shake the mounting dread, Rosa retreated to the small, cluttered kitchen. Her trembling fingers reached for her cell phone. With no one else to turn to, she decided to call Helena Monroe, the private investigator whose reputation for unraveling the most perplexing disappearances and kidnappings had spread among those who had experienced loss. Though Rosa had never met Helena face to face, word of her relentless determination and keen insight into complex cases had reached even the quiet corners of their community. The phone clicked, and after a few moments that felt like an eternity, Helena's calm, measured voice answered. Helena Monroe. Speaking. Helena Monroe. This is Rosa Fuentes, came the trembling reply, laced with urgency and barely contained panic. I need your help. I came home to find everything. It's like Alicia vanished. There's no sign of her anywhere. Helena paused, her attention immediately sharpening. Please, take a deep breath, Ms. Fuentes, and tell me exactly what you found. Rosa inhaled shakily, trying to steady herself. I went into her apartment. The door was unlocked, but nothing's been disturbed, except, well, there's no Alicia. Her purse, her phone, they're all still here. And the lights. They were on. It's like she just disappeared into thin air. A heavy silence fell on the line as Helena absorbed every word. She knew that disappearances like this often carried hidden layers, details that authorities might overlook. Even without meeting Ms. Fuentes in person, Helena had seen enough cases where the first impression was deceiving. Ms. Fuentes, I need you to return to the apartment if you can, and check for any unusual signs, a note, a receipt, anything that might tell us where she intended to go. And please, do not disturb anything. I want the scene to remain as untouched as possible. I don't know what to look for, Rosa admitted, her voice wavering. But something about this feels off. Alicia wasn't the type to leave without saying goodbye. She was reliable, you know? And she mentioned a few times that she'd received some unexpected gifts lately. Nice things, things I couldn't imagine coming her way. I thought it was just part of her work, but now, I don't know. Helena's mind began to churn with possibilities, each new detail adding subtle weight to the mystery. While Rosa's words hinted at a deviation from Alicia's ordinary routine, Helena maintained a professional reserve, even as she felt the pull of personal responsibility. Very well, Ms. Fuentes, Helena said firmly. I'm going to start looking into this immediately. Please keep me informed if you notice anything else unusual. Rosa's voice softened into a whisper. Thank you, Helena Monroe. I can't understand it. Alicia was doing her job, working for those high-end clients, keeping everything as she always did. Now it's all empty. After the call ended, Helena sat back in her worn leather chair, the silence of her modest office amplifying the gravity of the situation. She scribbled notes in a battered notebook, details that might later form the backbone of a case file. There was no need for a grand introduction of her past here, just the quiet, relentless commitment to bring clarity to a baffling disappearance. The mention of unexpected upscale gifts caught her attention, though she resolved to keep that thread in reserve for now. Every case had its peculiarities, and sometimes the smallest detail could unravel a much larger web. Outside her window, the city was winding down for the night, unaware of the secret stirring in the shadows of an ordinary apartment. Helena's pulse steadied as she contemplated the next steps. The disappearance of Alicia Fuentes was not just another case. It was a puzzle that promised to reveal deeper, hidden betrayals. And while she didn't yet know how far the threads would lead, one thing was clear. The truth had a way of emerging, no matter how deeply it was buried. With a determined sigh, Helena gathered her notes, closed her notebook, and leaned back. The case had just begun, and somewhere out there, Alicia's story waited to be told. And Helena was resolved to be the one to uncover it. Chapter 2. The Desert Discovery. Helena Monroe had settled into a modest motel room in El Paso, a near-border city where the pulse of migration and local mysteries beat in tandem. The cramped room was strewn with case notes, interview transcripts, and scattered photographs, tangible reminders of Alicia Fuentes' puzzling disappearance. A small television in the corner played a local news channel, its low murmur a constant backdrop to Helena's focused work. As dusk softened the edges of the day, Helena's attention was caught by a news report. The anchor's measured tone described a grim discovery. In a remote stretch of desert just outside the city, authorities had unearthed a mass grave containing the bodies of migrants who had perished during a failed smuggling operation. The report painted a stark picture of a barren, unforgiving landscape, a place where tragedy seemed woven into the very sand. Then, amidst the cascade of sorrowful images, Helena's trained eye caught something that didn't belong. The footage panned over a hastily covered body. A glimpse of fabric peeked out from under a layer of dust. A silk scarf, pale with a distinctive pattern. It was subtle, almost lost among the rugged utilitarian clothing typical of desperate border crossers. But Helena knew quality when she saw it. And a scarf like that was not something a struggling migrant would likely carry. Helena sat forward, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. The news feed moved on, but the image was already burned into her mind. Something was wrong. Leaning back, she exhaled slowly, her fingers tapping against the leather cover of her notebook. She scrawled a note. Scarf. Expensive. Not a typical crossing item. Who does it belong to? The next step was clear. She needed to confirm what she saw and who it belonged to. The discovery of a mass grave near the border was tragic, but sadly not uncommon. Human smuggling operations went wrong more often than authorities cared to admit, leaving behind unmarked graves filled with the desperate and the lost. Most cases barely made the evening news. This one had, because someone had tipped off the press before law enforcement could control the narrative. Sitting alone in the quiet motel room, with the neon lights of El Paso twinkling in the distance and the desert's chill slowly encroaching, Helena felt a renewed sense of urgency. The mass grave, the stark desert, and the unexpected elegance of that scarf all pointed to a hidden mystery that demanded further investigation. In a city where secrets often lurked beneath the surface of everyday events, every detail could be the key to unraveling a much larger puzzle. Determined to follow this promising lead, Helena folded her notebook with care. She resolved to re-interview Rosa and delve deeper into Alicia's recent routine, particularly any mention of the upscale gifts that had unsettled her sister. Each clue added weight to the case, suggesting that the disappearance of Alicia Fuentes was far more than an isolated tragedy. It was a mystery waiting to be solved, and the refined scarf was a sign that not everything was as it seemed. She glanced at her phone, fingers hovering over the screen before dialing a number she had memorized long ago. After a few rings, a voice answered. "Yeah? It's Helena. I need a favor. The detective we worked with on that kidnapping case, the one out of Juarez, where did you say he ended up? Was it El Paso?" A pause, then a chuckle. "Miguel Sandoval? Yeah, last I heard he was still in El Paso PD. Haven't talked to him in a while, though. You tracking something?" Helena's grip on the phone tightened. "Something like that. I just need to find him. I'll text you his number," the voice said. "Be careful, Monroe. Sounds like you're about to stir something up again." She let out a dry laugh. "Aren't I always?" Ending the call, Helena stared at the phone screen as a new message popped up. Sandoval's number. She didn't hesitate. Her fingers moved fast, dialing. It was time to get answers. Chapter 3. Following the thread. Morning light filtered softly through the thin curtains of Helena's motel room in El Paso, illuminating a scattered array of case notes, photographs, and interview transcripts that together chronicled the life of Alicia Fuentes. One recording in particular, a detailed interview with Antonio Morales, owner of an upscale florist that had employed Alicia for exclusive deliveries, drew Helena's focused attention. Antonio's smooth, measured tone conveyed admiration for Alicia's impeccable work ethic and the discreet manner in which she handled her tasks. Yet throughout his account, there was a striking omission. He never mentioned any personal details, no reference to her family or background beyond the professional realm. It was as if Alicia had carefully sealed away everything that lay outside her polished public image. Helena scribbled notes in her well-worn notebook, contemplating the implications. For someone striving to succeed among high-end clients, it seemed Alicia had deliberately cloaked her personal life, an effort to present herself as fiercely independent. But that careful separation also left glaring gaps, vulnerabilities that could be exploited by those who assumed she was entirely on her own. Determined to fill in the missing pieces, Helena arranged to meet Rosa Fuentes later that day at a quiet cafe in downtown El Paso. The gentle clink of porcelain and the low murmur of conversation set a subdued backdrop for a discussion heavy with unspoken pain and regret. As they sat across from one another, Helena leaned forward with a measured, compassionate tone. "Rosa, I've been going over everything about Alicia," Helena began softly. Antonio Morales described her as someone who kept her work completely separate from her personal life. Did she ever speak about her family or mention any details of her background? Rosa's gaze dropped to the rim of her coffee cup as her fingers nervously tapped its handle. Alicia always insisted that her work was her entire world, Rosa replied in a low, hesitant tone. She believed that keeping her personal life hidden was the only way to succeed with those high-end clients. She never mentioned our simple upbringing. She kept that part of her life locked away, even at work. Helena nodded, then ventured, "I also recall you mentioning that she sometimes received upscale gifts, things that were completely out of character. Was there one gift that stood out to you?" A faint, bittersweet smile flickered across Rosa's face as she recalled, "Yes, there was. I remember she once received a beautiful Burberry silk scarf. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen her wear. Elegant, refined, and clearly very expensive. She never spoke about who might have given it to her, but I always suspected it was from someone in that glamorous circle she longed to belong to. Helena's curiosity deepened, though she kept her own suspicions to herself. That scarf always seemed like a small token of the world Alicia wanted to be part of, a way to keep her private life separate from the image she carefully maintained. Rosa murmured. She was so determined to belong among the sophisticated that she never let anyone see where we really came from. Helena absorbed Rosa's words, each one deepening the mystery. Alicia's deliberate concealment of her background and that meaningful gift painted a picture of a woman who, in striving for success among the sophisticated, may have left herself dangerously exposed. If everyone assumed she was entirely on her own, then perhaps no one would be there to protect her when things went wrong. That kind of self-imposed isolation can be dangerous, Helena murmured. If people believe she has no one watching over her, then those with ill intent might feel emboldened. Rosa's eyes shimmered with quiet sorrow. I always wished she'd let me in a little, so I could share in her world. But she was determined to maintain that perfect image, no matter what. As the conversation drew to a close, Helena's resolve grew stronger. The absence of personal details in Alicia's story and the delicate clue of that Burberry scarf had now formed a crucial thread in the mystery. It was a missing piece that might explain how such an accomplished, independent woman could end up so ruthlessly betrayed. Rising from her seat with a heavy heart and a mind brimming with questions, Helena stepped out into the fading El Paso light. The mystery of Alicia Fuentes was deepening, and every carefully hidden detail now seemed like a deliberate clue. Helena was resolved to follow every thread, knowing that even the smallest token might unlock the truth behind Alicia's disappearance. Chapter 4. Hidden Threads. Helena strode into the bustling El Paso Police Department early the next morning, her mind sharp and focused. The image of the silk scarf lingered vividly, a detail too unsettling to dismiss. Intuition alone wasn't enough. She needed confirmation. Something tangible linking Alicia to the scene in the desert. Detective Miguel Sandoval met her in the lobby, offering a firm handshake and a friendly nod of recognition. It had been several years since they'd worked together on a kidnapping case, long enough to be surprised at seeing each other again in El Paso. Helena Monroe, Sandoval said warmly, handing her a steaming cup of coffee. Didn't expect our paths to cross again, especially not down here. What brings you to El Paso? Missing persons case, Helena replied. A young woman named Alicia Fuentes. Her sister, Rosa, contacted me after she vanished. Sandoval's expression turned sympathetic. Anything specific bringing you here this morning? Helena hesitated, then nodded. I saw the news report about the mass grave discovered in the desert. Something caught my eye, probably nothing, but I'd like to check it out. The migrant burial site? Sandoval asked, his tone immediately serious. What caught your attention? It's probably nothing, Helena repeated cautiously. Just something subtle, but I need to see it for myself before jumping to conclusions. Sandoval nodded thoughtfully. All right, let's take a look. He led Helena quickly through busy hallways to a quiet conference room, where crime scene photographs had been carefully arranged on display boards. Helena scanned the tragic images, her trained eyes immediately finding the incongruous detail, a silk scarf, refined and luxurious, starkly out of place among the victim's worn clothing. Her pulse quickened as she recognized the distinctive Burberry pattern that Rosa had described. Helena kept her reaction in check, maintaining a neutral expression. Turning to Sandoval, she asked, Has this victim been identified yet? Sandoval shook his head slightly. Not yet. We were holding back certain details like the scarf until identification could be confirmed. But her clothing is clearly unusual compared to the others. Helena chose her words carefully. Would you consider letting Rosa Fuentes view this discreetly? It might confirm if there's a connection. Absolutely, Sandoval agreed immediately. I'll arrange it today and keep you informed. If it's Alicia, we'll need her employer records and personal contacts. It could be important. Helena nodded gratefully. Thank you. Keep me updated. Leaving the station, Helena's attention was drawn across the street, where a crowd had gathered outside City Hall. Curious, she stepped closer, noticing cameras set up and reporters gathering around a polished podium. Standing confidently behind it was Marcos Delgado, a rising political figure whose name had recently begun circulating prominently in El Paso. Today, we face a tragic reminder of the consequences when our borders remain unsecured, Delgado declared, his voice resonating confidently through the gathered crowd. It is our duty to protect this community and ensure no more lives are lost to ruthless traffickers. The audience applauded approvingly as Delgado continued his polished speech. Helena listened quietly, noting his charisma, but not giving it particular thought. Politicians addressing border security issues had become common in recent months, and Delgado appeared to be just another public figure advocating solutions to a sensitive issue. Returning to her motel, Helena began reviewing her notes once again, carefully arranging photographs and details across the bedspread. Alicia's deliberate secrecy about her background, the expensive scarf, and Rosa's quiet pain, each piece connected subtly. But Helena knew there was much more to uncover. For now, she focused on the immediate step, waiting for Sandoval to confirm Alicia's identity. Afterward, she would gain access to her client list, allowing Helena to delve deeper into the life Alicia had so carefully hidden. Helena had a feeling the answers lay among Alicia's wealthy and influential clients, people whose privilege and power could mask even the darkest secrets. The scarf was just the beginning. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but she was determined to follow each hidden thread, no matter how dangerous it became. Chapter 5, Identity Revealed. Helena sat quietly in the small observation room at the El Paso Police Department, waiting alongside Detective Sandoval as Rosa Fuentes prepared to view the carefully selected images from the mass grave discovery. The air was heavy, tension coiled tight in the cramped space as Rosa nervously approached the table, visibly steeling herself for what was to come. Through the glass partition, Helena saw Rosa pause briefly, her posture stiffening. Rosa leaned over the photographs, her fingertips shaking slightly as she touched one image gently. A sharp intake of breath broke the silence. "That's Alicia," she whispered, voice trembling. "It's her. Oh, God." Her gaze lingered painfully on the familiar face, and then briefly shifted downward, recognizing the scarf. That scarf, she loved it. She treasured it. Detective Sandoval exchanged a somber glance with Helena before stepping forward. "You're certain, Ms. Fuentes?" Rosa nodded tearfully. "Yes, absolutely." Helena's chest tightened, a quiet sorrow mingling with the confirmation she had suspected all along. Alicia Fuentes was no longer simply missing. This was now officially a homicide investigation. After Rosa had left, Sandoval and Helena returned to his office, the mood heavy with the grim certainty they had just gained. "We'll start with the florist," Sandoval said, pulling up a file on his computer. "Antonio Morales has agreed to share Alicia's client list. If there's a connection to her death, maybe it lies with one of her customers." Helena leaned closer, her gaze intent on the screen as Sandoval brought up the list. Her eyes moved quickly through the names, until one suddenly made her pause. Helena felt a quiet but unmistakable shift inside her chest. "Marcos Delgado?" she asked, carefully masking any emotion from her voice. "The politician?" Sandoval nodded, unaware of her internal reaction. "Yes. Looks like Alicia had weekly deliveries scheduled at his home. Always fresh flowers. Very exclusive arrangements. Morales said Delgado was one of their most prestigious clients." Helena's heart beat faster, her mind spinning quietly. This was an unexpected twist, the first real intersection between Alicia's carefully guarded professional life and the powerful circles she'd tried so hard to belong to. But Helena forced herself to remain outwardly calm, masking her inner turmoil. "Do we know if she had any personal relationship with Delgado beyond deliveries?" she asked carefully, keeping her tone neutral. Sandoval shrugged. Morales didn't mention anything like that. As far as he knew, Alicia never mixed personal and professional relationships. But we'll need to confirm this with Delgado directly. Helena rose from her seat, a plan already forming. "When do you plan to speak with him?" "Tomorrow morning," Sandoval replied, studying her closely. "Do you want to join?" Helena hesitated only briefly before answering. "Yes, I'd like to observe." That evening, back in her motel room, Helena reviewed everything she had gathered. Alicia had maintained strict boundaries, kept her private life hidden. Now, with the identity confirmed, her discreet connection to a prominent figure like Delgado seemed significant. It might have been nothing more than a professional interaction, but the lavish scarf told a different story. Someone had gifted it to her, and Helena's instincts told her it wasn't merely a routine gesture. She spent hours that evening carefully reviewing Delgado's recent media appearances, observing his public demeanor and considering how he might handle pressure. The politician was increasingly visible, riding the wave of public outrage over the tragedy at the border to enhance his popularity. He projected sincerity, empathy, and charisma, a polished public image that Helena found difficult to trust completely. Helena knew she needed to confront him directly, to observe his reaction to Alicia's name, her disappearance, and ultimately her death. If Marcos Delgado had a secret, his reaction would betray him. It was a subtle skill, observing those microscopic shifts in expression and tone that most people missed entirely, but Helena had built her career on exactly those hidden moments of revelation. Late that night, Helena finally closed her notebook, resolved. The pieces were aligning slowly, and tomorrow would bring another crucial step in understanding the hidden circumstances surrounding Alicia's tragic fate. With a heavy sigh, she turned off the bedside lamp, her mind sharp with anticipation, ready for whatever the morning would reveal. Chapter 6. Unspoken Reactions. The next morning, Helena accompanied Detective Sandoval to Marcos Delgado's elegant home, nestled in one of El Paso's upscale neighborhoods. The sun shone brightly, reflecting off polished windows, the manicured gardens presenting a facade of perfection. Helena studied the surroundings carefully, noting the precision with which everything appeared arranged, mirroring Delgado's carefully cultivated public persona. Delgado welcomed them warmly, extending a firm handshake, his manner confident yet courteous. "Detective Sandoval, Ms. Monroe, please come in," he said smoothly, leading them into a tastefully decorated sitting room. Once seated, Sandoval got straight to the point. "Mr. Delgado, we're investigating the murder of Alicia Fuentes. We understand she made regular flower deliveries here, arranged by Antonio Morales." Delgado's expression shifted subtly, his confident smile fading just slightly. Helena noted the tiny flicker in his eyes, a micro-expression she recognized immediately: surprise, followed by cautious hesitation. "Yes." Delgado responded after a brief pause, regaining his composure. I recall Alicia, though only vaguely. She came weekly to deliver and arrange flowers. She seemed pleasant enough. I'm shocked to hear of her death. Sandoval nodded professionally. Did you ever speak to her personally, beyond basic courtesies? Delgado shook his head calmly. Only briefly in passing. Her visits were short and efficient. Helena watched him closely, taking mental notes. Delgado's response was measured, careful, not unusual for a politician used to public scrutiny. Sandoval continued. Were you aware of any personal details about her? Family, friends, or relationships she might have had? No, Delgado replied firmly. Our conversations never went beyond the flowers. Helena considered the moment carefully, deciding to introduce a delicate detail. Alicia had a sister, Rosa Fuentes, she said quietly. She's been searching tirelessly since Alicia disappeared. She was the one who identified Alicia yesterday. This time, Helena saw it clearly. The subtle tightening of Delgado's jaw, the quick blink as he processed the information. His fingers shifted, ever so slightly, against the arm of his chair. This reaction was genuine and unmistakably uncomfortable. I wasn't aware she had family here, Delgado admitted, his voice carefully controlled. She never mentioned them. Not surprising, Helena acknowledged neutrally. She kept her personal life private, even from her co-workers. Delgado nodded slowly, absorbing this new information. I wish I could be more helpful, but my interactions with Ms. Fuentes truly were minimal. Sandoval rose, signaling the meeting's conclusion. We appreciate your cooperation, Mr. Delgado. If anything else comes to mind, please contact us immediately. Delgado agreed graciously, shaking hands again, though his expression was now slightly tense. Helena noted his careful politeness as he escorted them to the door, his usual polished composure subtly strained. Outside, as they returned to Sandoval's vehicle, Helena replayed Delgado's reactions in her mind. She'd carefully observed his behavior, noting precisely when his body language shifted. While Delgado had remained controlled, his subtle discomfort upon learning about Rosa was significant, at least enough to catch Helena's interest. Still, she reminded herself to remain cautious, as there were many reasons someone might feel uncomfortable in such circumstances, especially someone so publicly visible. What did you think? Sandoval asked as they drove away, glancing briefly at Helena. He seemed composed, Helena replied carefully. But he wasn't expecting Rosa's involvement. That caught him off guard. Sandoval nodded thoughtfully. Exactly my thought. It could be nothing, or it could mean he's hiding something. Either way, we'll keep an eye on him. Helena agreed quietly, turning her gaze toward the passing scenery. They were closer to the truth now. She felt certain of it. Marcos Delgado was careful, polished, and skilled at concealing emotion, but Helena had seen beneath the carefully maintained exterior just a glimpse of vulnerability. Whether it was guilt or merely discomfort, Helena wasn't yet sure, but it was enough for her to keep watching closely. As they drove back toward the city, Helena mentally reviewed every detail, every subtle shift in Delgado's demeanor. The path forward was becoming clearer, each small clue bringing her closer to uncovering what had truly happened to Alicia Fuentes. Chapter 7. The Carefully Orchestrated Lie. Marcos Delgado was not an official suspect. Not yet. Helena knew that if they pushed too hard too soon, he would close ranks, call in favors, and make the investigation disappear before they had a chance to expose him. The moment he felt truly threatened, he would use every political and financial resource at his disposal to stall, deflect, or mislead. So they had to be careful. Sandoval had framed the latest round of questioning under the pretense of routine witness interviews. The investigation was still officially centered on Alicia's last known interactions, the people she saw regularly through work, her deliveries, and any potential conflicts or personal connections. To Delgado, this was nothing more than the standard due diligence of law enforcement, a necessary formality. What he didn't know was that they were deliberately expanding their reach into his household staff and personal employees. If Delgado was hiding something, the people closest to him might reveal what he wouldn't, even if they didn't realize they were doing it. The interrogation room at the El Paso Police Department was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee. Camila Ortiz sat across from Helena and Sandoval, her hands folded tightly in her lap. For over a decade, she had been the quiet force behind the polished facade of the Delgado household, ensuring that everything ran seamlessly. She was nervous but composed, her loyalty evident. Sandoval leaned forward, his tone neutral. "Senora Ortiz, we appreciate your cooperation. We know you've been with the Delgado family for many years." Camilla nodded. "Si, almost 12. Helena met her gaze, searching for hesitation. "We'd like to ask you about Alicia Fuentes." A flicker of recognition passed through Camilla's eyes before she quickly masked it. "The florist?" Helena nodded. "Yes. We understand she handled the weekly flower arrangements for the Delgados. Can you tell us about that?" Camilla hesitated for a moment before answering. "She came once a week. Always professional, always polite." Helena tapped her pen lightly against the table. "What day did she normally come?" Camilla swallowed, shifting in her chair. "Fridays." Sandoval glanced at Helena. That matched the official schedule given by Antonio Morales, Alicia's employer. Helena kept her tone even. "Senora Ortiz, do you recall a change in that schedule?" Camilla's lips pressed together. "See, about 5 or 6 months ago. Mr. Delgado asked me to move the deliveries to Tuesdays." Helena tilted her head. "Why? I don't know," Camilla admitted. "I thought it was odd, but I didn't question it. I worried it would be inconvenient for him, since Senora Delgado was often away at the beach house on Tuesdays, and I would be there with her. But he insisted, said it was better for his schedule." Helena felt her pulse quicken. The one day a week his wife wasn't home. On those Tuesdays, who else was in the house? Only Mr. Delgado, the gardener, and sometimes the driver if he wasn't out running errands. Helena let the silence stretch, watching Camilla. The woman avoided eye contact, her fingers tightening over each other. "Did you ever see them together? Mr. Delgado and Ms. Fuentes?" Camilla hesitated. "Not in any improper way, no." Mateo Ibarra, the gardener, was next, and clearly reluctant to talk. He wiped sweat from his forehead and glanced over his shoulder before answering. "I don't know much," he muttered. "I just do my job." Helena studied him. His posture was defensive, not out of guilt, but something close to fear. Sandoval kept his voice steady. "Did you ever see Ms. Fuentes outside of her usual schedule?" Mateo hesitated. "Yes," he finally admitted. "Once, late at night." Helena's pulse quickened. "How late?" "I was locking up the shed. Must have been past 10. Helena and Sandoval exchanged glances. That was no routine flower delivery. "Did she seem upset?" Mateo shifted uncomfortably. "She walked quickly, head down, like she didn't want to be seen." Sandoval frowned. "Was Mr. Delgado home?" Mateo hesitated again. "Yes." Helena felt the pieces clicking together. Alicia had been there late and left upset. The question was, what happened after she left? Javier Ruiz, the Delgado's private driver, leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. His expression was impassive, but his eyes were guarded. "You drove Mr. Delgado often?" Sandoval asked. Ruiz shrugged. "Of course. Work events, meetings, all the usual." Helena studied him carefully. "Did you ever drive him with Ms. Fuentes?" Ruiz frowned slightly. "Ms. Fuentes?" Helena tilted her head. "Alicia Fuentes, the florist." The second of hesitation was all she needed. Ruiz shifted. No, I don't think so." Sandoval leaned forward. "Think carefully, Señor Ruiz." Ruiz licked his lips. I mean, I drove a lot of people." Helena's voice was soft, but firm. "Did you ever drive Mr. Delgado with a woman who was not his wife?" Ruiz's jaw tightened. I didn't ask questions." Sandoval exhaled, sitting back. "That's a shame, because if we subpoena Mr. Delgado's financials and hotel records, we're going to find out anyway. And it'll look a lot better if you tell us first." Ruiz hesitated. Then, with a sigh, he nodded. "Yes. He was seeing someone. I drove them sometimes. High-end restaurants, designer boutiques, hotels. He was careful, but not careful enough." Helena's pulse pounded in her ears. Confirmation. The affair was real, and Delgado had lied. By the time Delgado was summoned back for questioning, he was already on edge. His campaign was still in full swing, his perfect image intact, for now. When faced with the evidence, his reaction was cold, controlled. "Fine," he said smoothly. "I won't insult your intelligence. Yes, I had an affair with Alicia Fuentes. But that's all it was." Helena remained impassive. "And the night she disappeared?" Delgado's expression hardened. "I had nothing to do with it, liar." She saw it in the tightness of his mouth, the way his hands curled slightly against the table. She had him. She just wasn't done yet. Chapter 8, Unraveling the Lies. Helena leaned against Sandoval's desk, flipping through her notes while he scrolled through data on his laptop. "We have him," Sandoval muttered. "The affair is confirmed. We've placed her at his house at odd hours. We have his driver confirming she was more than a florist." Helena nodded, but her mind was already moving ahead. "It's a start, but it's not enough." Sandoval sighed. "We have motive for secrecy, but not murder." Helena drummed her fingers against the edge of the desk. Why was she buried among the border crossers? If Delgado had simply wanted her gone, why not make it cleaner? Why not use his wealth and influence to hide the body in a way that wouldn't draw attention? Instead, Alicia had been buried in a mass grave of migrants, as if she was nothing more than collateral damage. Sandoval's phone buzzed. He answered quickly, listening for several moments before his expression shifted. "Understood. We'll be right there." He hung up, locking eyes with Helena. "Rosa just found something. She wants us at her apartment." Rosa was waiting in her small living room, clutching a wooden box to her chest. "I was going through Alicia's things," she said, voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know if I should, but—" She looked down. She hid this medical records. Her breath hitched as she scanned the topmost paper. Alicia Fuentes, 8 weeks pregnant. Helena felt the blood drain from her face. "Oh my God," Sandoval whispered, reading over her shoulder. Rosa covered her mouth. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Helena exhaled sharply. "She was pregnant," she murmured. "And she didn't tell anyone." No, that wasn't true. She had told someone, and now she was dead. Helena's thoughts raced. Delgado had panicked, but was he the only one? Alicia's death might have started as a cover-up of a scandal, but had someone else taken advantage of the situation? That mass grave hadn't been meant for her. So why had she been dumped there? An hour later, Helena and Sandoval sat across from Hector Navarro. Delgado's longtime fixer and trusted enforcer, a man known for making inconvenient problems disappear in a dimly lit interrogation room. Navarro's face was unreadable, his arms crossed as he leaned back in his chair. He had the calm of a man who had been through interrogations before and knew exactly how to give them nothing. "We're reviewing Delgado's financials," Sandoval started, keeping his voice neutral. "Some interesting payments caught our eye." Navarro didn't react. Helena placed the medical records in front of him. Navarro's expression didn't change, but he didn't look away either. "Alicia Fuentes was pregnant," Helena said. A flicker, subtle but there. "She told him," Helena continued, "and then she ended up in a graveyard of dead border crossers." Navarro exhaled, shaking his head. "You've got nothing." Sandoval leaned back. "Alicia was last seen leaving Delgado's house late at night. She was upset. You don't find that interesting?" Navarro tilted his head slightly. "Lots of people leave places upset." Helena studied him. "And lots of people don't end up dead." Navarro's mouth twitched slightly, but he didn't respond. "We know she told Delgado about the baby," Sandoval pressed. "What we don't know is why she was buried with the others." Navarro's posture shifted slightly. "What are you implying?" Helena folded her arms. "That maybe Delgado wasn't the one who buried her." Navarro let out a short laugh. "Oh, so now he's innocent." Helena didn't answer right away. Instead, she let the question sit between them. Navarro was good at this, redirecting, shifting focus, but she had seen something in his reaction just now. "He has power, Navarro," she said. "Money. He could have handled this cleanly, discreetly, but that's not what happened." Navarro gave a slow, deliberate shrug. "I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should be looking at someone else." Helena narrowed her eyes. "Like who?" Navarro leaned back, lips curling slightly. "How should I know? All I'm saying is, people like Ortega don't ask for permission." Silence. Navarro had just confirmed he knew Ortega. Sandoval's eyes flickered toward Helena. That was the first slip. "I didn't ask about Ortega," Helena said, her tone carefully neutral. Navarro's face didn't change. "Miguel Lobo Ortega, a known enforcer and problem solver for cartel-affiliated smugglers operating near the border. Ortega had a reputation for eliminating liabilities and making people disappear. He wasn't just a hired gun. He was someone you called when you needed to send a message." Helena let the silence stretch. Navarro had worked for powerful people. He was smart enough to know what he had just done. "You're barking up the wrong tree," Navarro muttered. Helena leaned forward slightly. "You mean Delgado or Ortega?" Navarro exhaled sharply. "I'm just saying there are worse people than politicians out there." Sandoval sat back. "And yet you work for one." Navarro smirked, but there was no amusement behind it. "We all do what we have to." Helena studied him for a long moment. He was pointing them at Ortega, but was he doing it to protect Delgado or himself? Either way, he was telling them something important. Ortega hadn't just been hired to get rid of Alicia. He had made the call to bury her with the migrants. Chapter 9. The wall closes in. The pieces were finally coming together. Helena sat at Sandoval's desk, reviewing the last 48 hours. Navarro had all but admitted that Miguel Lobo Ortega was involved in Alicia's death. And yet, Ortega wasn't the one who had everything to lose. Delgado was. Helena could feel it. They were close. Delgado was squirming, even if he wasn't showing it yet. He had always been careful, but this wasn't just a political scandal anymore. Sandoval walked in, tossing a folder onto the desk. "Navarro's been dodging us since the interview," he muttered. "He knows we're getting close." Helena exhaled. "He slipped up when he mentioned Ortega, which means Ortega is either dead or on the run." Helena nodded. "And if Ortega's out of the picture, Delgado thinks he's safe. Sandoval smirked. Not for long. That afternoon they took their shot. Helena and Sandoval arrived at Delgado's campaign headquarters, where he was holding a closed-door strategy meeting. The office was polished, sleek, an expensive monument to political ambition. The moment Delgado spotted them, something flickered in his eyes. Not fear, annoyance. "Detective Sandoval," he greeted, forcing a polite smile. "Ms. Monroe." Helena caught the slight hesitation in his voice. He knew why they were here. Sandoval didn't waste time. "We need to speak with you about Alicia Fuentes, in private." Delgado let out a theatrical sigh. "I've already cooperated. I don't see what more—" "You're going to want to come with us." A few of his aides exchanged glances. Delgado held his ground, but Helena saw the way his jaw tensed. He turned to his staff. "Excuse me, gentlemen, I'll handle this." Helena and Sandoval led him outside to an unmarked vehicle. Inside the interrogation room, Delgado leaned back in his chair, projecting confidence. "I assume this means you've found something new." Helena studied him. He wasn't nervous. Not yet. Sandoval dropped a folder in front of him. "You know Miguel Ortega?" Delgado's expression remained neutral. "Never heard of him." Helena smirked. "That's funny, because Navarro mentioned him by name when we asked about Alicia." Delgado's jaw twitched, just slightly. Sandoval opened the folder, flipping through documents. "Ortega's gone. Disappeared 2 weeks after Alicia's body was found. Which means one of two things." He leaned forward. "One, you paid him to handle this, and now you've made sure he'll never talk." Delgado didn't flinch. "Or two, he buried Alicia without your permission, and now you don't know where he is." A flicker of something, annoyance, calculation. "I don't know a Miguel Ortega," Delgado said smoothly. Helena didn't blink. "Then why is your fixer trying to make him the fall guy?" Delgado exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "This is ridiculous." Delgado gave a slow, measured smile. "Ms. Monroe, I have nothing to do with any of this." Silence. Then Sandoval set down the medical report. Alicia's pregnancy. Delgado's eyes flickered to it. Then, for the first time, Helena saw it. A crack. His lips parted slightly. A fraction of a second too long before his expression settled into cold control. He hadn't known they had proof of the pregnancy. Helena leaned forward. "You didn't just have an affair with her. You got her pregnant." Delgado's jaw tightened, but his voice was perfectly even. "That's a serious accusation." Sandoval's voice was calm. "It's not an accusation. It's a fact." Delgado let out a slow breath. Even if that were true, he had just admitted it, Sandoval didn't let him recover. "Alicia went to your house the night she disappeared. She left angry, upset. We have a witness who saw her." Delgado shook his head. "I had nothing to do with her disappearance." "But someone did," Helena pressed. "And that someone knew exactly where to bury her. They knew where to hide her body among the migrants so she wouldn't be noticed." Silence. Helena let it stretch. Let the weight of the moment settle over him. Then Sandoval broke it. "We're charging you with obstruction of justice." For the first time, Delgado's mask slipped. The confidence cracked just slightly. Then, a knock at the door. Sandoval frowned, exchanging a glance with Helena. One of the officers stepped in, leaning down to whisper something. Sandoval's jaw tightened. Helena felt it before she knew it. The shift. The way Delgado's shoulders relaxed slightly. Something had changed. Sandoval exhaled, his voice low with frustration. "We need to take a break." Delgado simply smiled. Outside the room, Sandoval was furious. Helena could already feel it slipping away. "What happened?" she asked, her voice sharp. Sandoval ran a hand down his face. "His wife just made a public statement." Helena's stomach dropped. She grabbed Sandoval's phone and pulled up the news. There she was, Sofia Delgado. perfectly composed, standing in front of their estate, speaking into the microphones. My husband is being unfairly targeted in an outrageous smear campaign. This has nothing to do with justice-only politics. Helena clenched her teeth. Then Sophia delivered the final blow. On the night Alicia Fuentes disappeared, my husband was with me, at our beach house, the entire night. Helena closed her eyes, and just like that, Delgado had an alibi. Sandoval let out a slow breath. That's it, isn't it? Helena shook her head. It doesn't mean he's innocent, but it gives him cover, Sandoval muttered. Helena stared at the screen, at Sofia Delgado's practiced expression. She was lying. She knew, and yet she had just cleared her husband publicly. Helena inhaled slowly. Delgado had just slipped through their fingers. Unless... Helena turned away, staring out the window. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. Helena had been in this position before, so close to taking someone down, only to feel the case slipping through her fingers at the last second. But this time, she wasn't leaving without finishing it. Sofia Delgado's statement had thrown the investigation into chaos. The press had eaten it up. A devoted wife standing by her husband, swearing he was with her the night of the murder. Helena had seen people get away with worse, but not this time. She sat at Sandoval's desk, reviewing the crime scene photos, then at the photos from Alicia's apartment. Her shoes. She had left in her indoor slippers. No purse, no phone, no keys. Because she wasn't planning to be gone. Helena sat up straight. He called her, she muttered. Sandoval looked up. What? He called her that night, told her to come down. Probably said he wanted to talk, that he was sorry. Sandoval's brows furrowed. You think she left willingly? Helena nodded, the pieces falling into place. For 5 minutes. Just to hear him out. Sandoval leaned forward. But he didn't call from his phone. Helena tapped her fingers against the desk. No, he wouldn't risk it. And then it hit her. Navarro! Sandoval's eyes widened. He called from Navarro's phone, Helena said, her pulse quickening. Sandoval was already moving. We pull Navarro's call records. If Delgado used his phone to lure Alicia out, we've got him. An hour later, they had it. A single outgoing call from Navarro's phone to Alicia's apartment at 11:37 p.m. Alicia had walked out minutes later, and she had never been seen again. They brought Navarro back in. This time, he didn't look as confident. Helena slid the call log across the table. You called Alicia the night she disappeared. Navarro's jaw tightened. You told us you didn't know anything, Sandoval added, his voice even. Navarro exhaled sharply. It wasn't my call. Helena nodded slowly. It was Delgado's. Silence. Navarro rubbed a hand over his face. He said he wanted to fix things, he muttered, that he just needed 5 minutes. Helena's pulse steadied, and she agreed. Navarro nodded. She came down, got in the car. He swallowed. She was smiling. Helena closed her eyes briefly. She had believed him. So what changed? Sandoval pressed. Navarro let out a slow breath. She told him she wasn't getting rid of the baby. Silence. He flipped, Navarro muttered. Said she was ruining his life, that she didn't understand what she was doing. And then? Helena pressed. Navarro hesitated. He hit her, he admitted finally. Hard. She tried to get out, but we were already moving. Helena's stomach twisted. Where did he take her? Sandoval asked. Navarro's face darkened. To a place his campaign used sometimes, a safe house outside the city. I left. I didn't want to see what happened next. Helena felt a chill crawl up her spine. You mean you didn't want to stop it? Navarro didn't reply. Who was there? Sandoval asked. Navarro hesitated. Then, in a quiet voice, Miguel Ortega. Helena clenched her fists. She had known it. And then what? She asked, her voice cold. Navarro swallowed. I don't know what happened inside that house. Helena studied him carefully. He was lying, but she had enough. Delgado was arrested at his home an hour later. Helena watched as he was led out in handcuffs. His face was carefully blank, but she saw the flicker of fury behind his eyes. He had been untouchable his whole life. Now he wasn't. 2 days later, Helena sat in her motel room, staring at the autopsy report. Alicia had died from blunt force trauma to the head. The hit in the car hadn't killed her. She had been beaten to death. And then, instead of disposing of her like a high-profile politician would, she had been dumped in a mass grave. Helena traced a finger over the photo of Alicia's silk scarf. It had been a gift from Delgado. Expensive. Delicate. But Ortega hadn't known that. Ortega's men had done what they always did. Worked fast, efficient, without asking too many questions. To them, Alicia Fuentes was just another body, another problem to get rid of. She didn't have anything that might identify her. No phone, no wallet, no jewelry, nothing that could tie her back to the life she'd lived. But to them, the scarf, the delicate silk wrapped loosely around her neck, was nothing more than a cheap market imitation. A knockoff, the kind street vendors sold by the dozens. They hadn't known its real worth, and that was their mistake. They had buried Alicia among the nameless, the lost, the forgotten. Ortega had done what was convenient, what was quick. But Delgado needed it to be seamless. Delgado needed her to disappear without a trace. Instead, they had left behind a thread, a detail that didn't belong. A scarf that had been chosen with care, gifted by a man who wanted to keep her hidden, yet in the end, it was the very thing that made her stand out. Delgado had thought no one would come looking for her, that she would blend in with the other victims. But her sister had looked for her. The trial came fast. Navarro flipped on Delgado. He testified in exchange for a reduced sentence, detailing everything, from the phone call to the assault, to Delgado leaving Alicia with Ortega. Miguel Ortega was found dead 2 weeks later. A gunshot wound to the head, a loose end tied up. Delgado tried to fight it. His lawyers threw everything they had at the case. But Alicia's pregnancy sealed it. The jury saw him for what he was, a coward who had killed a woman to protect his career. Guilty, sentenced to life in prison, Helena finally let the case go. She exhaled slowly. Some things stayed buried, but not this. Not her. End of chapter and end of story. Like and subscribe to support our channel, and listen to more crime stories and murder mysteries.